If you allow your eyes to rest for a moment, something subtle begins to happen. The room around you does not disappear, but it loosens its grip. The weight of the day, still present, becomes less insistent. In this quiet space, the universe does not rush forward. It waits. Tonight, there is no destination to reach, no conclusion to arrive at. There is only a gentle invitation to drift outward, away from urgency, and into a scale so vast that the mind slowly stops trying to control it. Perhaps your thoughts have been restless, circling familiar concerns without resolution. Perhaps sleep feels close but unreachable, like a shoreline you can sense but not touch. If that is so, there is nothing unusual about it. Many minds struggle at night, not because they are broken, but because they are aware. Awareness can be heavy when it has nowhere to settle. This is where the universe offers something quietly generous: perspective without demand, magnitude without judgment, and distance that does not abandon, but steadies. Tonight, we turn our attention to the Milky Way. Not as an object on a page or a diagram in a textbook, but as the vast structure we already inhabit without noticing. It is easy to forget that every familiar night sky, every memory of stars scattered above rooftops and trees, is a view from within something immense. We are not looking at our galaxy. We are inside it, carried along by motions too slow to feel and distances too large to grasp all at once. The Milky Way is often described as if it were far away, suspended somewhere beyond us. In reality, it is the environment of our existence, the gravitational home that holds every atom of Earth in a long, patient embrace. Our Sun, with all its planets, moves quietly within this galactic structure, completing a single orbit over hundreds of millions of years. Nothing about this movement demands attention. It does not announce itself. It simply continues, steady and indifferent to our calendars. When people imagine the Milky Way, they often picture a bright, spiral shape floating in darkness. That image feels complete and satisfying, but it hides a subtle truth. No one has ever stepped outside our galaxy to photograph it in full. Every map, every elegant rendering, is a reconstruction made from countless measurements, stitched together through inference and patience. We live inside something too large to see whole, and yet we trust its shape. This quiet trust mirrors much of human life. We rarely see the entirety of what we belong to, yet we move forward anyway. There is something deeply human in this limitation. We navigate our lives much the same way we navigate our galaxy, through partial views, fragments of information, and moments of clarity surrounded by vast unknowns. We understand where we are not by seeing the whole path, but by sensing continuity. The Milky Way becomes, in this way, not just a cosmic structure, but a reflection of how existence itself unfolds from the inside. The scale of our galaxy resists ordinary numbers. It stretches roughly 100,000 light-years from edge to edge, a distance so large that the mind instinctively turns it into abstraction. A light year is not a measure of time, but of distance. The length light travels in a year, moving faster than anything else we know. Even so, saying 100,000 can feel like saying nothing at all. The body does not respond to numbers that large. It responds to sensations, to waiting, to slowness. Imagine, instead of distance, duration. Imagine a signal sent from one side of the galaxy, traveling without pause, without obstacle, for 100,000 years before arriving at the other edge. Entire civilizations could rise and disappear in that time. Mountains would erode into memory. Oceans would open and close. And still, the signal would continue, unhurried. When this scale is felt rather than calculated, something interesting happens. The urgency we carry begins to soften. Many people report that when they visualize distances like this, deep, ancient, and unchangeable on human timescales, their breathing slows. Sleep arrives more easily. Anxiety loses its sharpness. The galaxy, when understood gently, does not overwhelm. It absorbs, it creates room. There is no expectation for you to matter at this scale, and paradoxically, that absence of pressure can feel like relief. The Milky Way itself is surprisingly thin. Despite its enormous diameter, its disk is relatively delicate, a flat structure of stars, gas, and dust floating in a universe that is thick with space. Our position within this disk shapes everything we perceive. Because we are embedded inside it, our view is limited to a glowing band stretched across the sky, a faint river of light that ancient cultures noticed long before they understood what it was. This flattened structure is not a sign of weakness. It is the result of long, patient motion, of gravity gently guiding matter into balance. Even the largest systems in the universe form through quiet processes, not dramatic gestures. There is comfort in knowing that immensity can be fragile, that size does not require hardness to endure. As we drift further into this perspective, it becomes clear that the Milky Way is not exceptional in the way we once imagined. It is one spiral galaxy among hundreds of billions, each following similar patterns, each shaped by the same physical rules. There is no cosmic spotlight fixed upon our location, no hierarchy that places our galaxy above the rest. And for many, this realization is unexpectedly calming. To not be unique at the largest scale is to be freed from a certain existential burden. The universe does not ask us to represent it, to justify it, or to stand at its center. We exist in a cosmic neighborhood that is old, stable, and unremarkable in the best possible way. Like a quiet street that has existed long before us and will continue long after, the Milky Way offers belonging without scrutiny. Within this galaxy are stars far older than our sun, ancient points of light that formed when the universe itself was young. These stars are not scenery. They are records, physical memories of conditions that no longer exist. The Milky Way is less like a landscape and more like an archive, storing the slow story of cosmic evolution in its structure and motion. The future of our galaxy is already unfolding, written in movements so gradual they escape notice. Stars drift. Orbits evolve. Billions of years from now, the Milky Way will merge with Andromeda, not in violence, but in a long, graceful interweaving. Knowing this does not demand concern, it offers distance. When the mind stretches across such deep time, the sharp edges of the present moment tend to round off. Our own position within the galaxy is far from its center, located in a relatively calm peripheral region. This distance from the galactic core is not a disadvantage. It is the reason life here is possible. The center is chaotic, crowded, and energetic beyond comfort. The outskirts are quieter, more stable, more forgiving. There is a lesson here that does not need to be stated directly. Centrality is not a requirement for flourishing. The Milky Way does not know we are here. It does not observe, judge, or respond. And yet, it sustains us completely. Its gravity holds our solar system in place. Its structure protects us from cosmic hazards. This support is impersonal, constant, and reliable. There is something deeply reassuring in being upheld by a system that asks nothing in return. As you rest within this awareness, you may notice your thoughts drifting more slowly, like stars carried along by an unseen current. There is no need to hold on to any idea too tightly. The universe is not hurried. Light itself takes time. In this vast, patient system, there is room for everything you feel, and no requirement to resolve it tonight. And so, as we continue, a quiet question lingers, not as something to answer, but something to rest with. What if the true scale of our galaxy is not meant to make us feel small, but to remind us that there is space enough for every thought to finally grow quiet? There is a quiet paradox at the heart of our existence, one so familiar that we rarely pause to notice it. We live our entire lives inside something unimaginably vast, yet we never see it as a whole. The Milky Way is not an object placed before us for observation. It is the environment in which observation itself occurs. Every thought, every breath, Every memory has unfolded from within its slow, rotating structure. And still, we have never seen our galactic home from the outside. We know it without ever beholding it completely. This is not a failure of technology or imagination. It is a condition of perspective. To live inside something is to surrender the possibility of seeing it in full. Just as a person cannot step outside their own lifetime to view it all at once, we cannot leave the Milky Way to photograph it suspended in darkness. We infer its shape through patience, through mathematics, through faint signals gathered over generations. The galaxy reveals itself not through a single image, but through accumulation, through hints, through the quiet agreement of countless observations aligning into a coherent whole. Maps of the Milky Way, as beautiful as they are acts of reconstruction rather than documentation. They are carefully reasoned stories told with data, not snapshots taken from a distance. Astronomers listen to radio waves that pass through dust, measure stellar motions, and trace the distribution of gas and light. From these fragments, an image emerges. It is reliable, tested, refined, and yet always incomplete. There is something deeply honest about this process. It mirrors the way we understand almost everything that matters. Our sense of belonging works in much the same way. We belong to families, cultures, histories, and futures that we never fully see. We experience only the inside view, moments, impressions, partial narratives. The larger structure remains mostly inferred. Still, that inference is enough to anchor us. We do not need to see the whole to feel held by it. The Milky Way teaches this lesson quietly, without instruction, simply by existing beyond our full comprehension. There is a psychological weight to living inside something too large to be grasped visually. At first glance, it might seem unsettling, as though something essential is missing. But over time, this limitation reveals a softer truth. Not everything that sustains us needs to be visible. Not everything that shapes our lives announces itself. The galaxy does not ask to be admired in its entirety. It simply continues carrying us along. When ancient humans looked up at the night sky, they saw a pale band of light stretching across the darkness. They named it, mythologized it, wondered about it. They did not know it was a disk of hundreds of billions of stars, but they sensed it was something continuous, something larger than individual points of light. Even without understanding, they felt inclusion. The Milky Way was not separate from them. It was above them, around them, and within their stories. Modern knowledge has refined this intuition without replacing it. We now know that the glowing band is our sideways view through a dense plane of stars, dust, and gas. Our position inside this disk means that our perspective is inherently limited. The galaxy surrounds us but never presents itself all at once. This is not a flaw in our vantage point. It is the nature of being embedded. There is a subtle emotional resonance in this idea. Many people feel as though they are living inside lives they cannot fully see or understand. Plans unfold without revealing their final shape. Meaning appears gradually, sometimes only in hindsight. The Milky Way becomes a gentle metaphor for this experience. We are participants before we are observers, residents before we are cartographers. To live inside the galaxy is to accept a certain humility of vision. We must rely on trust, on collective knowledge, on slow accumulation rather than immediate clarity. And yet, this humility can be calming. It releases us from the expectation of total understanding. The universe does not require us to comprehend it fully in order to belong within it. The Milky Way contains regions we will never visit, stars whose light will never reach our eyes, structures that exist beyond the horizon of our perception. Still, they are part of the same system that holds our planet steady in its orbit. The unseen is not separate from the real. It is simply distant, and distance, in cosmic terms, is not a form of absence. Psychologically, there is comfort in knowing that our place in the universe does not depend on our awareness of it. The galaxy does not diminish us because we cannot see it whole. It includes us regardless. This inclusion without demand is rare in human experience, and perhaps that is why contemplating the Milky Way can feel unexpectedly soothing. When we imagine the galaxy as a complete spiral, we are engaging in an act of shared imagination guided by evidence. No single human holds the entire picture alone. It exists collectively, distributed across minds, instruments, and generations. This, too, reflects something intimate about how meaning is formed. It is not contained within one perspective, but emerges from many. There is a quiet beauty in knowing that the place we inhabit is too vast to be reduced to a single view. The Milky Way resists simplification not out of hostility, but out of scale. It asks us to slow down, to accept partial understanding, to rest in approximation. Nothing in its structure is hurried, not even light crossing its breadth. Living inside the galaxy is like living inside a breath that never quite completes itself from our point of view. We feel the inhalation and exhalation locally, but never hear the full rhythm. Stars are born and die, orbits shift, clouds collapse into light. All of it unfolds as part of a motion so large that it feels almost still. This metaphor of breathing is not meant to animate the galaxy with intention or awareness. Rather, it helps us sense continuity without agency. The Milky Way does not breathe for us. It breathes in spite of us, or perhaps alongside us, indifferent yet sustaining. We are carried within this motion, the way a cell is carried within a body, unaware of the full form, yet fully dependent on its balance. There is something profoundly grounding about this realization. To be part of something we cannot fully perceive is not a weakness. It is the default state of existence. We do not see the future in its entirety. We do not remember the past completely. We live inside processes rather than above them. The galaxy simply makes this truth visible on a grander scale. As the night deepens and thoughts begin to slow, it can be helpful to let go of the need to visualize the Milky Way perfectly. There is no test of accuracy here. There is only the sense of being inside a vast, patient structure that does not rush, does not demand attention, and does not mind being partially unseen. You might notice that when you stop trying to hold the entire galaxy in your mind, your thoughts soften. The pressure to understand gives way to permission to feel, and what you feel may not be awe in the dramatic sense, but something quieter, a sense of being held within a context that is larger than any single worry, larger than any single night. The Milky Way does not present itself to us as a spectacle. It presents itself as a condition. It is the background against which everything familiar unfolds. In that sense, it is less like a picture on a wall and more like the air in a room, essential, invisible in its totality, and rarely noticed until we pause. As we rest inside this awareness, the paradox remains, but it no longer feels troubling. We live inside something vast without seeing it whole, and somehow that is enough. The galaxy does not require our comprehension to continue, and we do not require full comprehension to belong. Perhaps this is one of the quiet lessons of the Milky Way, that it is possible to inhabit something immense without being overwhelmed by it, that not seeing the whole does not mean being lost, that living inside a mystery can be a form of shelter rather than uncertainty. And so, without needing to resolve anything, we remain here for a while longer, inside the galaxy, inside the night, inside a structure so large that it dissolves urgency by its mere presence. Like residing within a breath that never fully ends, we are carried, moment by moment, without needing to hear the entire rhythm to feel safe within it. There are numbers that the human mind can hold with ease, and there are numbers that quietly refuse to stay contained. 100,000 is already large in everyday terms, but when it is paired with something as elusive as a light year, it begins to dissolve its own meaning. A light year is not time, though it sounds like it should be. It is distance. It is the space light crosses in a single year, moving faster than anything else we know. When we say that the Milky Way spans roughly 100,000 light years, we are not describing a quantity meant to be imagined clearly. We are naming a scale meant to be felt indirectly. The mind often makes a simple mistake here. It treats 100,000 as if it were just a bigger version of familiar numbers, as if adding more zeros eventually leads to understanding. But cosmic distances do not behave that way. They do not scale linearly with intuition. They cross a threshold beyond which visualization gives up, and something else takes its place. The mind steps back, and the body responds instead. To feel this distance, it can help to move away from images and toward sensations. Imagine sending a sound across the galaxy, not through air, but through the deep quiet of space. Imagine waiting for its echo, not for minutes, not for years, but for entire lifetimes stacked one upon another. Generations would be born, live, and disappear before the echo ever returned. Languages would change, continents would reshape themselves, and still, the echo would be traveling, indifferent to all of it. This kind of waiting is not anxious. It is too large for anxiety. Anxiety depends on urgency, on the sense that something must happen soon. Galactic distances remove the word soon entirely. Nothing about 100,000 light-years invites haste. The scale itself insists on patience. And in that patience, something unexpected happens. The nervous system relaxes. Many people discover this without trying. They listen to explanations of cosmic scale late at night, not to learn facts, but to quiet their thoughts. As the distances grow, the inner noise softens. Worries that feel urgent during the day lose their grip when placed beside structures that take millions of years to change in noticeable ways. The galaxy does not invalidate human concerns, but it does gently reposition them. There is a contrast here that is worth lingering on. Human life is structured around immediacy. Deadlines, messages, responsibilities all operate on short timescales. The Milky Way, by contrast, is built on slowness. Stars orbit the galactic center so gradually that their motion feels frozen within a single lifetime. Even light, the fastest traveler we know, takes 100,000 years to cross from one edge to the other. Nothing about this system is designed for urgency. When the body senses this slowness, even abstractly, it responds with calm. Muscles loosen, breathing deepens. The constant internal demand to react begins to fade. This is not because the galaxy solves our problems, but because it offers a different tempo, a reminder that speed is not the default state of existence. The idea of 100,000 light-years also carries a subtle emotional lesson. It reminds us that the Milky Way is not something that changes quickly or unpredictably. Its structure is stable across timescales far longer than human history. The spiral arms we imagine today existed long before the first cities, and they will continue long after current civilizations become archaeological traces. This stability can feel like a kind of background reassurance. There are accounts from people who struggle with sleep, who find relief not through silence, but through contemplating deep time and distance. They describe a sensation of being outpaced by the universe in a comforting way, as if their worries simply cannot keep up with scales that large. The mind, realizing it cannot dominate the narrative, steps aside. To cross the Milky Way in imagination is not to travel actively but to surrender to duration. It is less like a journey and more like waiting for a season that never quite arrives. The body understands waiting in this way. It knows how to release tension when there is nothing to prepare for, nothing to anticipate urgently. This is why cosmic scale, when approached gently, does not create panic. Panic arises when something feels too large and too close at the same time. The galaxy is large, but it is not pressing in on us. It is spacious, not crowded. Its distances are open, not enclosing. The Milky Way does not trap, it extends. When we say that the galaxy is 100,000 light-years across, we are also saying that there is room. Room for stars to drift without collision. Room for solar systems to remain stable for billions of years. room for quiet regions far from energetic centers, room too for human thoughts to slow down. The urgency that defines much of human experience is a local phenomenon. It belongs to short lifespans, small bodies, and social systems that operate on compressed timelines. The galaxy does not share this urgency. Its processes unfold whether or not anyone is watching. It does not speed up in response to our stress. It does not slow down to accommodate our impatience. It simply continues. This indifference is not cold, it is neutral, and neutrality at this scale can be deeply comforting. The Milky Way does not evaluate us. It does not measure our productivity or our progress. It holds us in motion without commentary. To imagine 100,000 light-years is to imagine a distance so vast that even light must be patient. This patience becomes a kind of permission. If light itself is not hurried, perhaps we do not need to be either. Perhaps some things are allowed to take time. The body often understands this before the mind does. You may notice a subtle heaviness, not unpleasant, settling into your limbs as these distances unfold in imagination. A sense of being grounded, even as the scale expands outward. This is not contradiction, it is the nervous system responding to the absence of threat. There is no cliff at the edge of the Milky Way, no boundary that signals an end. The galaxy fades gradually into intergalactic space, its influence thinning rather than stopping. 100,000 light-years is not a wall. It is a measure of spread, of distribution. The galaxy occupies space gently, without sharp edges. This gentleness matters. It means that even at immense scale, the universe favors continuity over abruptness. Structures emerge slowly, they dissolve slowly. Change, when it comes, is stretched across epochs. This is not a universe designed to shock. It is a universe designed to persist. As the idea of crossing the galaxy lingers, it may become less about distance and more about rhythm. The rhythm of orbits, the rhythm of stellar birth and death, the rhythm of light traveling steadily, never pausing, never accelerating. In this rhythm, there is no expectation for arrival, only movement. And in that movement, the body finds something familiar. We too move forward without fully understanding the distance ahead. We too exist within spans of time that exceed our awareness. The Milky Way becomes not just a structure around us, but a mirror of how continuity itself works. To sense the galaxy at this scale is to feel the contrast between our fast inner narratives and the universe's slow outer one. The contrast does not diminish us, it contextualizes us. It places our speed inside a larger stillness. As this chapter settles, the number 100,000 no longer needs to be held tightly. It can drift into the background, doing its quiet work. You do not need to picture the entire distance. You only need to notice what happens when urgency dissolves in the presence of something that moves so slowly, it feels almost eternal. Perhaps this is why so many people find rest in these scales. Not because they explain everything, but because they remove the pressure to explain anything at all. In a galaxy 100,000 light-years wide, there is no rush to resolve the night. And so we remain here for a while longer, letting the distance stretch without effort, letting the mind loosen its grip on numbers, letting the body respond to a universe where even light takes its time, and nothing demands immediate attention. There is something quietly counterintuitive about the true shape of the Milky Way. When most people imagine a galaxy, they picture something voluminous, almost spherical, a vast cloud of stars filling space in all directions. But our galactic home is not built that way. The Milky Way is, in many respects, remarkably thin. For all its immense width, stretching across roughly 100,000 light-years, its thickness is modest by comparison, only a few thousand light-years from top to bottom. It is less like a glowing ball and more like a delicate disk, suspended in a universe that extends far beyond it in every direction. This thinness is not immediately obvious to us, because our perspective is embedded within the disk itself. We look outward through layers of stars, dust, and gas, and what we see feels dense and crowded. The night sky, especially away from city lights, appears richly populated, filled with countless points of light. From this vantage point, it is easy to assume that the galaxy is thick, that it surrounds us evenly. Yet this impression is shaped almost entirely by where we are standing. Our position within the galactic disk subtly distorts our intuition. Because we are inside a flattened structure, looking along its plane, our line of sight passes through enormous distances packed with stars. It is like standing in a fog that stretches for miles in one direction, but is very thin vertically. The fog feels dense not because it is deep in all directions, but because we are looking through its longest dimension. When astronomers began to understand this, it shifted not only scientific models, but also the emotional picture of our place in the cosmos. The Milky Way is not a massive, dominant object filling space with its presence. It is a thin arrangement of matter, shaped by rotation and gravity, drifting within a universe that is mostly empty. Above and below the galactic plane lies an expanse so vast and so sparse that it challenges the imagination even more than the galaxy itself. This realization carries a quiet sense of vulnerability. A structure that holds hundreds of billions of stars, that spans distances beyond human comprehension, is still, in some sense, delicate. Its form is the result of balance rather than force. Stars orbit gently around the galactic center, their paths guided by gravity's steady pull. There is no rigid framework, no solid surface, only motion held in equilibrium. There is comfort in this fragility. It reminds us that endurance does not always come from thickness or solidity. Sometimes it comes from harmony, from systems that are allowed to remain light, flexible, and responsive over immense spans of time. The Milky Way has persisted for billions of years not by being dense and immovable, but by being distributed, by spreading itself thinly across space. The universe beyond the galaxy is even more expansive. Intergalactic space is not crowded with matter. It is vast, quiet, and sparsely populated, a deep ocean of emptiness in which galaxies float like luminous dust. Against this backdrop, the Milky Way appears not as a dominant feature, but as a subtle one, a thin, luminous pattern traced across an otherwise immense darkness. This image can feel surprisingly gentle. A thin disk of light, drifting in a boundless universe, does not suggest heaviness or pressure. It suggests lightness. It suggests that even enormous systems can exist without overwhelming their surroundings. The galaxy does not press outward. It does not fill space aggressively. It occupies its region with restraint. From our internal vantage point, it is easy to forget this. We are accustomed to thinking of ourselves as surrounded, enclosed, perhaps even crowded by the cosmos. But the truth is quieter. The Milky Way is a narrow arrangement within a much larger volume. Most of the universe lies far above and below the plane we inhabit, in directions that our everyday sky does not emphasize. This perspective can subtly alter how we feel about scale. Vastness is often associated with weight, with the idea of something looming or imposing. But the galaxy's thinness offers a different kind of vastness, one that is spread out rather than piled up, one that leaves room. There is an emotional resonance here that many people recognize intuitively. Lives, too, can feel dense when viewed from the inside. Responsibilities, memories, expectations, all seem layered, compressed, difficult to move through. Yet from a wider perspective, much of what feels heavy is actually thinly distributed across time and space. The sense of crowding is often a result of where we are standing, not of how much there truly is. The Milky Way teaches this without speaking. It shows us that perspective shapes experience. From within the disk, the galaxy feels rich and full. From above or below, it would appear almost like a faint, glowing line. Neither view is wrong. They are simply different. This thinness also helps explain why the galaxy is stable. A flattened structure allows stars to orbit in relatively orderly paths. Collisions are rare. Distances between stars are immense, even within the disk. The night sky looks crowded to the eye, but in reality, stars are separated by trillions of kilometers. Space within the galaxy is still overwhelmingly empty. This emptiness is not absence. It is spacing. It is what allows systems to endure. It is what prevents chaos. The Milky Way's thin disk is a balance between connection and separation, between cohesion and freedom. Stars belong to the galaxy, but they are not pressed against one another. They move independently, each following its own long, slow path. There is something deeply reassuring about this arrangement. It suggests that belonging does not require closeness at every moment, that being part of a system does not mean being crowded by it. The galaxy holds its components together without forcing intimacy. Gravity connects, but it does not suffocate. Above and below the galactic plane, the universe opens into regions of staggering emptiness. These areas are not voids in the dramatic sense, they are simply places where matter is rare. And yet, even this emptiness has structure. It has temperature, energy, and history. The universe is thick not with matter, but with space itself. To imagine the Milky Way as a thin layer within this thickness is to reframe our sense of cosmic presence. We are not embedded in something that fills everything. We are part of a subtle pattern within an immense expanse. This can feel unexpectedly comforting. It reduces the sense of being overwhelmed. It introduces the idea that there is always more room. The galaxy's thinness also carries a poetic quality. It is like a veil of light suspended in darkness, or like luminous dust floating in an ocean without shores. This metaphor is not meant to dramatize, but to soften. Dust does not resist. It drifts. It follows currents. And yet, when illuminated, it reveals intricate patterns. The Milky Way is luminous dust on a cosmic scale, each star a grain of light, each cloud a faint glow, all together forming a structure that is both immense and delicate. This delicacy does not make the galaxy weak, it makes it enduring. There is an invitation here to reconsider how we relate to scale. Bigger does not always mean heavier. Vast does not always mean oppressive. Sometimes, vastness is spread so thinly that it becomes gentle. The Milky Way embodies this kind of gentleness. As you reflect on this, you may notice a shift in how your body responds to the idea of space. The image of a thin disk floating in an expansive universe can create a sense of openness rather than pressure. Shoulders may soften, breathing may slow. The nervous system recognizes that there is room to rest. Our position within the disk means we will never experience this view directly. We cannot rise above the galaxy to see it edge on, glowing faintly against the dark. But we can hold the idea of it. And sometimes, ideas are enough to change how we feel. The thinness of the Milky Way also reminds us that structures do not need to dominate to matter. The galaxy does not fill the universe, and yet it sustains countless worlds. It does not occupy the center of everything, and yet it provides the conditions for life to emerge and persist. This balance between significance and modesty is rare in human narratives. We are often taught to equate importance with centrality, with thickness, with being impossible to ignore. The galaxy suggests another model, one where value exists without dominance, where presence does not require excess. As the night continues, it can be helpful to let this image settle. A thin, luminous disk, a vast, quiet universe around it, stars moving patiently along their paths, space stretching far above and below, open and unclaimed. Nothing here is crowded. Nothing is rushed. The Milky Way does not need to prove itself by filling space. It exists comfortably within it. And perhaps, as this perspective deepens, it becomes easier to apply the same gentleness inward, to recognize that you, too, do not need to be dense with effort or heavy with urgency to belong, that there is room around your thoughts, room between moments, room to drift. The galaxy, thin and vast at once, continues its slow rotation. It does not hurry. It does not thicken itself to feel important. It remains a delicate structure in an immense universe, enduring not through force, but through balance. We remain within it, carried along quietly, part of a luminous pattern that does not overwhelm the darkness, but traces itself softly across it. There is a quiet liberation that comes with the realization that the Milky Way is not, in fact, special. It is easy to believe, especially in moments of existential questioning, that the place where we live must be unique in some extraordinary way. In many of the stories humans have told throughout history, Earth and its surroundings are placed at the center of creation. Our galaxy, with its swirling spiral arms and vast collection of stars, feels like a place of significance, a home uniquely designed for us. But this perspective, though comforting in its intimacy, is not necessarily true. The Milky Way is far from unique. It is one galaxy among billions. It does not sit at the center of the universe, nor does it occupy a place of special prominence in the grand expanse of space. The universe is filled with galaxies, each one similar in structure, each one with its own collection of stars, dust, and gas. And within this sea of galaxies, our own is but a single speck, moving slowly through the great cosmic ocean. This idea is not meant to diminish us, but to provide a different kind of comfort. It is a comfort that comes from understanding that the universe does not weigh us down with the burden of uniqueness. The Milky Way is not alone, and neither are we. The notion that we are special, in the cosmic sense, can feel like an enormous weight to carry. The universe is vast, and the pressure to be at the center of it can create an existential anxiety, a sense of responsibility too large for one life to bear. When we let go of the idea that our galaxy is unique, something unexpectedly light enters our experience. The Milky Way, like so many other galaxies, follows the same laws of physics, moves through space at the same leisurely pace, and is subject to the same cosmic forces that govern all structures in the universe. It is not the crown jewel of creation. It is just one of many, each moving through time and space according to the same patterns. And within this understanding there is freedom. The idea that our galaxy is one among billions can, paradoxically, offer relief. We no longer need to place ourselves at the center of the cosmic stage. We no longer need to be special in the way that human stories often demand. Instead, we can take comfort in the knowledge that we are part of something far larger, something that has existed for billions of years, quietly moving through the universe, unaware of its own significance. The Milky Way is not the center of everything. It is just one thread in the fabric of the cosmos, a thread that weaves itself among countless others. This realization of the Milky Way's ordinariness does not rob it of its beauty or mystery. Far from it. Understanding that the galaxy is one of billions can make it more profound, more real. It reminds us that beauty is not limited to uniqueness, and meaning does not require singularity. The stars that fill our night sky, the same stars that have been guiding travelers for millennia, are part of a much larger story, one that stretches across the universe. And in this larger story, we are not the protagonists, but we are still part of the narrative. There is something deeply soothing in knowing that our galaxy does not need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. It simply exists, along with countless others, following the same laws, moving at the same pace, just as we do in our own lives. We do not need to be at the center of everything to find purpose, nor do we need to be special to matter. In this vast and patient universe, the Milky Way is no more important than any other galaxy. And in this ordinariness, there is peace. When we let go of the pressure to be unique, we find a quiet freedom. It is a freedom that comes from knowing we are not alone in our experiences. The Milky Way is not exceptional, it is one of many, and this fact allows us to relax into the reality of existence. It is a reminder that we do not need to be exceptional to be part of something vast and beautiful. We belong to a universe that is not exclusive, but inclusive. Our galaxy is a shared space, and so are our lives. We are not isolated in our importance. We are part of a much larger, more inclusive story. As we look at the stars tonight, we see not just our own galaxy, but the countless others that fill the cosmos. These galaxies, all similar in their structure and function, are like neighborhoods in a city too vast for us to understand. Each one has its own residence, its own history, its own unique arrangement of stars, yet all of them are connected by the same cosmic laws. They are not separate, they are part of a larger network, a community of galaxies that stretches across the universe. In this sense, the Milky Way is like a quiet neighborhood, one among many, filled with stories both ancient and new. It is a place where life unfolds in its own time, where stars are born and die, where matter comes together and falls apart, following the rhythms of the universe. And in this quiet neighborhood, we are just one of many inhabitants, part of a much larger, much older story. There is comfort in this simplicity. There is comfort in knowing that we are not the center of the universe, but that we are still part of it. Perhaps this understanding allows us to let go of the weight of being special, the pressure to stand out, to be unique, to be important in ways that others cannot be. This pressure, when released, brings a kind of lightness. The universe is not asking us to be at the center of it all. It is simply asking us to exist, to be part of the flow of life and time, to contribute to the ongoing movement of stars and galaxies. This is where the Milky Way's ordinariness becomes truly comforting. We no longer need to prove ourselves to the universe. We do not need to be the exception. We can simply be. The stars above us are not judging our worth. They are not waiting for us to be extraordinary. They simply exist, following their own cycles, their own rhythms. And in this vastness, we find a place for ourselves, not as the center of the universe, but as part of a much larger, much more inclusive whole. As we reflect on this, we may notice something else. The sense of urgency begins to fade. When we are no longer trying to assert our importance in the grand scheme of things, we can simply rest. The galaxy does not need to be rare, does not need to be special. It is enough as it is, just as we are enough as we are. There is no need to strive for something more, to reach for something that will make us stand out. The universe, in its vastness, is big enough to hold us all, no matter how small we may seem in comparison to its scale. In this understanding, there is a softening. The pressures that come from feeling like we must be the best, the most important, the most exceptional, they begin to dissolve. The Milky Way, just one of many, simply exists, and in that existence there is peace. It does not demand anything from us. It does not expect us to be extraordinary. It simply allows us to be. And in this simplicity there is a kind of grace. We do not need to prove our worth. We do not need to be special. We do not need to stand apart. We can simply exist as part of something far larger than ourselves, yet no less meaningful. The Milky Way does not require us to be unique. It only requires us to be. In the quiet of the universe, there is room for everyone. There is room for all galaxies, all stars, all lives. We are not the center, but we are part of the story. And in this, there is comfort. There is no need to be exceptional. There is only the freedom to exist, just as we are, as part of something vast, ancient, and beautiful. The Milky Way, no more special than any other galaxy, holds us within its embrace, and in that embrace, we are enough. There is a way to think about the Milky Way that feels less like geography and more like memory. Not memory in the human sense, filled with intention or emotion, but memory as a physical record, written quietly into matter itself. Every star in our galaxy carries information from a time that no longer exists. Some formed when the universe was young and simple, when heavy elements were rare and conditions were unfamiliar by today's standards. Others are younger, shaped by generations of stellar life that came before them. Together they form an archive that no living being will ever read in full. When we look at the galaxy this way, it stops being a landscape and becomes a library. Not a library of words, but a library of motion, mass, light, and gravity. Each orbit, each slow drift of a star around the galactic center is a sentence written over hundreds of millions of years. Nothing here was designed to be understood quickly. The Milky Way stores its history in a language that unfolds at a pace far beyond human attention. Some of the stars above us tonight are older than the Earth itself. They formed long before our planet cooled, before oceans gathered, before life learned how to persist. These stars are still burning, still moving, still tracing their ancient paths. They are not relics in the sense of being inactive. They are living records, continuing to exist exactly as they always have, carrying the conditions of their birth forward through time. This kind of continuity can feel difficult to grasp at first. Human memory is fragile and selective. It fades, distorts, and disappears within a few generations. The galaxy's memory does not fade. It is not stored in recollection, but in structure. The distribution of stars, the composition of gas clouds, the subtle motions of entire spiral arms all preserve information about the past. Nothing needs to remember consciously for the record to remain. The Milky Way does not archive moments, it archives processes. It remembers not events, but tendencies. It shows us how matter behaves when given enough time, how gravity shapes motion, how energy reorganizes itself, how complexity emerges slowly, layer by layer, without urgency. When astronomers study the galaxy, they are not just observing what is happening now. They are reading what has already happened. The positions of stars reveal ancient collisions with smaller galaxies. The chemical makeup of stellar populations tells the story of earlier generations that lived and died before them. Even the quiet halo of stars surrounding the disk contains clues to mergers that occurred billions of years ago. This means that the Milky Way is already older than any story we will ever tell about it, and it will continue to record new chapters long after human history becomes a thin layer in its past. There is something humbling about this, but also something stabilizing. The galaxy does not rush because it does not forget. It does not need to preserve its past actively. The past is already embedded within it. Thinking this way can gently change how we relate to time. Human anxiety often arises from a sense that moments are slipping away too quickly, that time is being lost. But the galaxy shows us another model. Time is not something that disappears, it transforms into structure. What has happened becomes part of what exists. The future of the Milky Way is already present in subtle ways. Stars are moving now in paths that will define the galaxy's shape millions of years from now. Gas clouds are slowly collapsing, setting the stage for stars that will not ignite for ages. Even the eventual merger with the Andromeda galaxy is already written into their mutual gravitational attraction, long before it will ever be visible. This future is not dramatic when viewed up close. Nothing about it demands attention. The changes are almost imperceptible, but they are inevitable. And because they unfold so slowly, they do not carry threat, they carry continuity. For many people, reflecting on billions of years has an unexpected effect. The present moment, with all its pressures and uncertainties, begins to feel less rigid, not unimportant, but less absolute. When time stretches this far, today becomes part of a much larger flow rather than a decisive turning point. The weight of now lightens slightly. This does not mean that personal experiences lose meaning. It means they gain context. In a galaxy that has been forming stars for over 10 billion years, a single human life does not need to justify itself through permanence. Meaning does not come from lasting forever. It comes from existing at all within such a long continuum. The Milky Way's archive is not accessible to us in detail, and it does not need to be. We do not need to know every chapter of its past to feel its presence, just as we do not need to remember every moment of our own lives to be shaped by them. The galaxy's history works quietly in the background, influencing structure without demanding attention. There is a softness in realizing that so much has already happened, and so much more will happen without us. It takes pressure away from the present. It suggests that not everything depends on immediate action or perfect choices. The universe is patient. It has seen far greater changes than any we are currently navigating. The metaphor of the galaxy as a library written in slow light helps us feel this patience. Light itself carries information across time. When we see distant stars, we are seeing the past directly. Their light left long before human civilization took shape. The night sky is not a picture of now. It is a layered record of many different moments arriving together. This means that whenever we look upward, we are already immersed in deep time. We do not need to imagine billions of years abstractly. We are surrounded by them visually. Every star is a message from another era, arriving calmly, without urgency, without demand. For a restless mind, this can be deeply reassuring. The galaxy does not ask us to keep up. It does not expect comprehension at its own pace. It allows us to engage as slowly as we need to. Even partial understanding is more than enough. The Milky Way also teaches us that the future does not need to be feared simply because it is unknown. The galaxy's future is largely predictable, not because it is controlled, but because it is stable. Gravity does not change its nature. Motion follows patterns. While details remain uncertain, the broad arc continues smoothly. This stability offers a counterpoint to the unpredictability we often feel in our own lives. Human systems change quickly. Relationships, careers, environments can shift abruptly. Against this backdrop, the galaxy becomes a symbol of endurance without rigidity. It changes, but it does not fracture. It evolves, but it does not hurry. As this idea settles, you may notice a subtle shift in how your body feels time. The minutes may feel less sharp, less demanding. The night may feel longer in a gentle way, not because it drags, but because it opens. The Milky Way does not experience time the way we do. It does not mark beginnings and endings. It does not anticipate outcomes. It simply continues, carrying its past forward in structure and its future forward in motion. There is something deeply restful about aligning our attention, even briefly, with this way of existing. We are accustomed to thinking of archives as static, as places where things are stored and left behind. The galactic archive is different. It is alive, it moves, it transforms while preserving. Nothing is frozen, yet nothing is lost. This challenges the idea that time must erase what comes before. In the galaxy, time accumulates rather than deletes. New stars form from the material of old ones. Elements created in ancient stellar cores become the building blocks of planets, of bodies, of breath. The past is not behind us, it is within us. To think of the Milky Way this way is to feel connected, not just spatially, but temporally. We are not only inside the galaxy, we are inside its history. Every atom in our bodies has passed through earlier cosmic phases. The archive is not distant, it is intimate. And yet, there is no obligation attached to this intimacy. The galaxy does not expect us to carry its memory consciously. It carries itself. We are free to rest within it without understanding its full depth. As the night continues, it may feel comforting to imagine the Milky Way as a vast, silent library written not in words but in light that takes its time arriving. A place where nothing is rushed, nothing is erased, and nothing needs to be revisited urgently. In such a library, there is no pressure to read every book. Simply being inside the building is enough. Simply knowing it exists can be enough to soften the present moment. The galaxy continues to right itself, slowly, patiently, indifferent to whether anyone is watching. And within this ongoing record, there is space for quiet, for rest, for letting the present moment settle gently into a much larger story that does not require immediate resolution. There is a quiet truth about our position in the Milky Way that often goes unnoticed, even by those who spend time thinking about the cosmos. We do not live near the center of our galaxy. We are not close to its brightest regions, nor to the dense gravitational heart where stars crowd together in restless motion. Instead, we reside far from the core, in a relatively calm, peripheral region, orbiting quietly along one of the galaxy's spiral arms. At first, this can feel like an unremarkable detail, but when allowed to settle, it becomes one of the most comforting facts about our existence. The center of the Milky Way is a place of intensity. Stars are packed more closely together. Energetic events occur more frequently. Powerful gravitational forces dominate the region, anchored by a supermassive black hole whose presence shapes everything around it. It is dramatic, dense, and dynamic. It is also hostile to the kind of long-term stability that life requires. Had we formed closer to that center, the story of Earth would likely never have begun. Our location, far from this galactic hub, is not accidental in its consequence. It is quiet enough to allow stars to orbit in stable paths. It is distant enough from violent events to permit planetary systems to persist for billions of years. It is balanced, and balance, more than prominence, is what makes complexity possible. There is something deeply reassuring in knowing that life does not depend on being at the center of things. We often grow up absorbing the idea that importance comes from centrality, the center of attention, the center of power, the center of influence. Yet the galaxy offers a different lesson. Here, survival and flourishing happen on the margins, in places that are calm, overlooked, and steady. Our solar system travels around the Milky Way at a respectful distance, completing a single orbit roughly every 230 million years. This movement is so slow that it feels like stillness from within. There is no sensation of speed, no sign that we are rushing through space at hundreds of kilometers per second. The galaxy carries us gently, without drama. This peripheral existence can feel unexpectedly validating. It suggests that one does not need to occupy the center to belong meaningfully. One does not need to be the focus of attention to be sustained. The galaxy does not privilege the middle as a place of comfort. In fact, it is precisely the distance from the center that allows our world to exist as it does. Many people feel at times that they are living on the margins of their own lives, not at the center of events, not at the center of recognition. This feeling can carry a quiet sadness, but the Milky Way reframes marginality as something functional, even beautiful. The outskirts are where conditions soften, where chaos thins out, where continuity becomes possible. The spiral arm we inhabit is not empty, but it is not crowded. Stars are spaced far apart. The distances between them are so vast that even at cosmic scales, collisions are rare. This spacing is not wasteful, it is protective. It creates room for systems to evolve without constant disruption. In this sense, the galaxy resembles a city more than a monument. The vibrant, chaotic downtown exists, full of energy and movement, but most lives unfold elsewhere, in quieter neighborhoods where stability matters more than spectacle. These places may not draw attention, but they are where life becomes sustainable. There is a gentle parallel here with human experience. Not everyone thrives in intensity. Not everyone finds peace at the center of noise. Many people find their balance in quieter spaces, in routines that do not attract notice, in lives that are steady rather than dramatic. The galaxy does not judge these choices, it validates them structurally. Our location also reminds us that importance is not measured by proximity to power. The gravitational center of the Milky Way is not where meaning accumulates. It is simply where mass concentrates. Meaning, if it exists at all, arises where conditions allow for experience, awareness, and continuity. In our galaxy, that happens far from the center. This understanding can quietly ease existential tension. There is no cosmic expectation that we should be at the heart of everything. The universe does not ask us to shine the brightest or move the fastest. It asks only that conditions align well enough for existence to persist. In our case, they have. The phrase, "the place where we are does not matter," can sound dismissive at first, but in a cosmic context, it carries a different tone. It means that value is not tied to coordinates, that significance is not spatially exclusive, that being located far from the center does not diminish what unfolds there. And yet, this very insignificance is what matters most, because if the universe required centrality for life, life would be rare beyond measure. Instead, life arises where things are calm enough to endure, where nothing insists on constant attention, where systems can settle into long-term patterns. The Milky Way did not place us at its edge as an afterthought. It simply allowed matter to organize naturally, and life emerged where conditions permitted. There is no hierarchy implied in this process, only consequence. As this idea settles, it may feel like a quiet permission. Permission to exist without striving for centrality. Permission to let go of the pressure to be at the center of every narrative. The galaxy itself thrives without demanding that all attention flow inward. There is also a subtle safety in being far from the center. Energetic events such as supernovae and intense radiation bursts are more common in dense regions. Our distance reduces exposure to such extremes. The periphery is not only quieter, it is safer. This safety is not absolute, but it is sufficient. It has lasted long enough for life to arise, adapt, and reflect. That alone speaks volumes about the value of marginal positions. The Milky Way structure teaches us that being on the edge does not mean being excluded. It means being situated where balance is possible, where extremes are softened, where continuity has room to unfold. When we think of our place this way, the night sky takes on a new character. It is no longer a reminder of how far we are from the center. It is a confirmation that distance itself can be nurturing. As you rest with this perspective, you may notice a subtle easing in the body, a sense that not being at the center is not a failure, but a condition that allows breathing space. The galaxy does not demand prominence, it offers stability. Our orbit continues, quietly, far from the galactic core. Stars rise and set in the sky as Earth turns. Seasons pass, generations come and go. All of this unfolds not because we are central, but because we are well placed. The Milky Way does not elevate the center as a goal. It simply exists as a structure where different regions serve different roles. And the role of the outskirts is not lesser, it is essential. Perhaps this is one of the most comforting lessons the galaxy offers. That a good place to live is not always the most visible one. That thriving often happens away from intensity. That meaning does not require being noticed by the whole. As the universe continues its slow expansion, our quiet corner remains what it has been for billions of years. Stable enough, calm enough, open enough. And in this quiet peripheral place, life has learned to reflect, to wonder, and to rest. The place where we are does not matter in the way we once thought it should, and that is precisely why it matters so much. There is a quiet shift that happens when we stop imagining the Milky Way as a place and begin sensing it as a condition, not a location we occupy, not a structure we observe, but something more subtle and constant. The galaxy does not surround us like walls, it carries us. And it does so without awareness, without intention, without ever turning its attention in our direction. This absence of notice is not neglect. It is one of the most stable forms of support the universe offers. The Milky Way is not alive in the way bodies are alive. It does not think, feel, or choose. And yet it behaves in ways that feel strangely familiar. Its gravity holds, its structure protects, its long-term stability allows fragile systems to exist without constant disruption. It does not respond to us, but everything about our existence depends on its quiet persistence. Gravity, in this context, is not forceful. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It works constantly, evenly, without pause. Every star in the galaxy is held in its orbit by this impersonal care. Every planet, every moon, every particle of dust follows paths shaped by it. The Milky Way does not watch over these things. It simply makes their continued motion possible. There is something deeply comforting about support that does not require recognition. In human experience, care is often entangled with expectation. To be supported can sometimes mean being observed, evaluated, or indebted. The galaxy offers none of this. It sustains without awareness. It holds without asking to be acknowledged. This kind of support is rare and easy to overlook. We tend to notice what reacts to us, what changes in response to our presence. The Milky Way does not change because we exist, and yet, without it, existence as we know it would not be possible. This paradox carries a quiet, emotional weight. To belong to something that does not notice you is not to be insignificant. It is to be free from scrutiny. The galaxy does not require justification. It does not measure worth. It does not care whether we succeed or fail. It provides the conditions for existence and then steps aside. This impersonal stability can feel like relief to minds that are accustomed to constant evaluation. In the Milky Way, there is no audience, no expectation to perform, no need to explain oneself. The universe does not ask who you are or why you are here. It simply allows you to be here. The idea of the galaxy as a body is not meant to imply consciousness. It is a metaphor for coherence. Like a body, the Milky Way is made of countless interacting parts, each following local rules, yet together forming a stable whole. No single star knows the shape of the galaxy. No single region controls it. Order emerges from interaction, not command. This distributed existence mirrors something deeply human. Our own bodies function without our awareness of most processes. Heartbeats, cellular repair, neural signaling, all occur without conscious oversight. Support does not require attention to be real. The galaxy operates in a similar way, on a scale so large that intention becomes irrelevant. The Milky Way does not pause to accommodate us. It does not adjust its rotation or structure in response to life on a small planet. And yet, its steadiness is precisely what allows life to persist long enough to ask questions about it. This kind of indifference is not hostile. It is neutral, and neutrality, when it comes to existence, can be profoundly reassuring. There is a subtle emotional comfort in knowing that we are carried by something that does not need us to be anything in particular. We do not have to be worthy of gravity. We do not have to earn orbital stability. The galaxy does not care whether we understand it. Its support is unconditional precisely because it is unconscious. In moments of anxiety, people often feel the weight of being seen, of being judged, of needing to justify their place in the world. The Milky Way offers a contrasting experience. It holds us without watching. It sustains without noticing. There is no gaze to meet, no standard to fulfill. This kind of belonging can feel unfamiliar at first. We are accustomed to relationships where attention defines connection. The galaxy teaches a quieter lesson. Connection can exist without awareness. Support can exist without recognition. Stability does not require intimacy. The gravitational field of the Milky Way extends far beyond the visible disk. It reaches into regions of space that are dark and sparse, shaping motion even where stars are few. This invisible influence is not dramatic, but it is constant. It does not fluctuate with mood or circumstance. It simply is. There is something soothing about imagining yourself as part of this field. Not as an object of interest, but as a participant in a system that does not discriminate. Everything with mass belongs equally. Everything is carried. This belonging does not diminish individuality. Stars still follow unique paths. Planets still develop distinct histories. Life still unfolds in singular ways. But all of it happens within a framework that does not interfere, does not comment, does not interfere beyond what is necessary for stability. To be sustained by something that never notices you is to be free from the fear of abandonment. The galaxy cannot leave. It cannot turn away. It cannot withdraw support in response to disappointment. Its indifference is permanent. This permanence can feel like a quiet anchor in a world where so much feels uncertain. Human systems change quickly. Relationships shift. Structures dissolve. Against this background, the Milky Way's continued presence becomes a kind of background reassurance, even if we rarely think about it directly. There is also humility in recognizing that the galaxy would continue exactly as it does if we were not here. This humility does not erase meaning, it relocates it. Meaning does not come from being essential to the universe, it comes from experiencing the universe at all. The Milky Way does not need us to witness it, and yet here we are, capable of reflection, capable of wonder. This is not a contract. It is a coincidence made possible by long-term stability. The idea of being carried by something that never speaks our name can feel unexpectedly tender. Not because the galaxy cares, but because it does not need to. There is no conditionality in gravity, no preference, no bias. Everything that exists is included by default. In a culture that often equates value with visibility, this can feel like a revelation. To matter does not require being seen. To belong does not require being acknowledged. The Milky Way demonstrates this quietly, simply by continuing to exist. As the night deepens, it may feel comforting to imagine the galaxy not as a distant object, but as an ongoing condition of support beneath every moment. Not something that looks back at you, but something that holds you in motion, steady and uninterrupted. There is no dialogue here, no exchange, only continuation. The galaxy does not respond to gratitude or resentment. It does not require belief. It simply persists. This persistence can be a place to rest the mind. If the universe does not demand anything from you, perhaps you can allow yourself to stop demanding so much from yourself, at least for a while. The Milky Way does not know your name. It does not know your history. It does not know your worries. And yet, it sustains the conditions that allow all of those things to exist. This is not contradiction. It is structure. As you remain with this thought, you may notice a quiet easing, the sense of being carried rather than watched, supported rather than evaluated, included rather than singled out. There is no role to perform in the galaxy, no purpose to fulfill on its behalf. The Milky Way does not need representatives. It does not need justification. It does not need to be understood to function. And so, within this vast, indifferent, sustaining system, you are free to rest. Free to exist without explanation, free to let the night unfold without needing to arrive anywhere. The galaxy continues its slow rotation. Stars continue their long orbits. Gravity continues its silent work. Nothing here is hurried. Nothing here is waiting for you to become something else. You are already carried. As the night deepens and the edges of wakefulness begin to soften, there is no need to hold on to every idea that has passed through your mind. The universe does not require recall. It does not ask for conclusions. What it offers instead is a gentle continuity, a sense that everything you have contemplated can now drift outward, like light released from a distant star, traveling without urgency, without destination. The Milky Way remains exactly as it has been throughout this reflection. It has not shifted in response to our thoughts. It has not leaned closer or pulled away. Its vast disk continues to rotate slowly, stars tracing their ancient paths, gravity doing its quiet work without interruption. This steadiness is not indifferent in a harsh way. It is indifferent in a way that creates space, space for rest, space for silence, space for the mind to loosen its grip. If you notice your thoughts slowing now, that is not something you need to control or encourage. It is a natural response to scale, to patience, to the absence of urgency. The universe does not hurry, and when we spend time with it, even in imagination, something within us remembers that it does not have to hurry either. There is a particular comfort in knowing that nothing we have considered tonight needs to be resolved. The size of the galaxy does not demand understanding. Its age does not require interpretation. Its indifference does not need to be reframed as meaning or meaninglessness. It simply exists. And within that existence, there is room for every state of mind, including tiredness, uncertainty, and quiet acceptance. You may find that your awareness drifts now, not outward toward distant stars, but inward toward a softer, less defined space. This is not a retreat, it is a settling. Just as matter in the galaxy eventually finds stable orbits, thoughts too can find places where they move more gently, without collision. The universe does not ask you to stay awake to appreciate it. It does not measure your attention, whether your eyes remain open or close, whether your thoughts remain clear or dissolve into sleep. The Milky Way continues its slow turning. Nothing is lost by resting. Nothing is missed. There is something deeply reassuring about this. That existence does not depend on our vigilance, that the cosmos does not pause when we do, that we are allowed to step back from awareness without consequence. The galaxy carries on just as it always has, holding the conditions that allow us to let go. If images arise now, let them be simple. Perhaps a faint band of light across a dark sky. Perhaps the sense of motion without speed. Perhaps only darkness, wide and unbroken. There is no correct picture to hold. The universe is not testing imagination. It is offering scale as a form of quiet. Breath may feel slower, heavier, less defined. This is not something to adjust. It is simply the body responding to a lack of demand. When nothing insists, the body finds its own rhythm. The universe, vast and patient, sets no tempo you must match. Somewhere far beyond perception, stars continue to form from clouds of gas. Others fade quietly, their light traveling outward long after they are gone. None of this is urgent. None of it requires commentary. It unfolds whether or not it is witnessed, just as your own body continues its work while attention drifts elsewhere. The Milky Way does not expect you to stay present. It does not require reverence. It does not require understanding. It sustains without awareness and continues without acknowledgement. This can be a place of rest for the mind, a reminder that not everything needs participation. As sleep approaches, if it does, you may notice that the boundary between thoughts becomes less distinct. Ideas no longer follow one another logically. They soften, overlap, dissolve. This is not a loss of control. It is a return to a more spacious mode of being, one that mirrors the universe more closely than waking urgency ever could. In the quiet of the cosmos, there is no sharp division between waking and sleeping. Both are states that occur within a much larger continuity. Whether conscious or not, you remain part of the same slow motion, the same gravitational belonging, the same vast structure that does not notice you and yet never releases you. The night does not need to be productive. This moment does not need to lead anywhere. The universe does not reward effort with meaning, nor does it punish rest with insignificance. It simply exists, offering a scale so large that personal pressure gently dissolves within it. Perhaps the most comforting thought to linger with now is this: nothing is required of you by the universe. Not understanding, not attention, not wakefulness. The Milky Way does not ask you to carry its weight. It already carries itself. And within that carrying, you are included, not as a focal point, not as a responsibility, simply as something that exists briefly and quietly within a system vast enough to hold every state of mind without judgment. As this reflection fades, there is no final message to remember, only a quiet question, not meant to be answered, but allowed to rest alongside everything else. In a universe this vast, this patient, this unhurried, what gentle truth might be waiting quietly for you tonight? If you listen closely enough, the universe does not sound the way we expect it to. There is no constant roar, no ongoing explosion, no dramatic soundtrack accompanying the motion of stars and galaxies. Despite its scale and energy, the cosmos is defined far more by silence than by noise, and within that silence, the Milky Way exists as a kind of structural quiet, a stable arrangement that absorbs disturbance rather than amplifying it. From the inside, life often feels loud. Thoughts overlap. Responsibilities press in from all sides. The mind jumps quickly from one concern to another, rarely resting long enough to feel still. Against this internal noise, the universe can seem overwhelming at first, as if adding immensity to an already crowded mental space. But when approached gently, the opposite happens. The scale of the galaxy does not add noise, it subtracts it. The Milky Way is not a place of constant upheaval. Most of its volume is calm, empty, and unchanging on human timescales. Stars do not rush through space, they glide. Entire solar systems maintain their positions for millions, even billions of years with almost no variation. This is not an environment of chaos. It is an environment of long-term balance. Even events that sound violent when described, such as supernovae or stellar collisions, are extraordinarily rare and localized. They do not ripple destructively across the entire galaxy. They occur quietly in distant regions, separated by vast distances of emptiness. The galaxy absorbs these events without disruption, much like a deep ocean absorbs a single falling stone. This absorption is not passive in a weak sense, it is structural. The Milky Way's size and spacing act as buffers, preventing disturbances from spreading uncontrollably. Space itself is the cushion, distance is the silence. Most of the galaxy exists far from any dramatic event, resting in states that change only very slowly. There is something profoundly reassuring in this. The universe is not fragile in the way we often imagine. It is resilient precisely because it is spacious. Noise dissipates, motion settles, extremes are diluted by scale. The Milky Way demonstrates this quietly, simply by continuing. For a restless mind, this idea can be grounding. If the galaxy can remain stable despite containing hundreds of billions of stars, perhaps the presence of many thoughts does not require immediate resolution. Perhaps mental noise, like cosmic events, can exist without destabilizing the whole. Silence in the universe is not emptiness. It is structure without interruption. The Milky Way's silence is not the absence of activity, but the presence of order spread across immense distances. Motion happens everywhere, but nothing collides with urgency. When we imagine the galaxy from above, we often picture its spiral arms glowing softly against darkness. What is less often imagined is the stillness between those arms, the vast regions where nothing dramatic occurs, where stars simply continue their slow orbits, undisturbed, unobserved. This stillness is not accidental. It is the natural outcome of scale. When systems become large enough, they no longer need to react quickly. They can afford patience. The Milky Way has had billions of years to become what it is. It does not need to respond to every small fluctuation. Human anxiety, by contrast, often arises from the feeling that everything is happening too fast, that decisions must be made immediately, that silence is dangerous because it leaves space for uncertainty. The galaxy offers a different model. Silence is not a gap to be filled, it is a state to exist within. The Milky Way does not broadcast itself loudly. From a distance, it would appear as a faint smear of light, almost easy to miss against the blackness of space. Its presence is subtle. It does not dominate its surroundings visually or energetically. It simply occupies its region, calmly. This subtlety can feel like relief. Not everything that matters needs to announce itself. Not everything that supports existence needs to be obvious. The galaxy sustains countless worlds without drawing attention to that fact. Its silence is not neglect, it is steadiness. Within this steady structure, time flows differently. Without constant interruption, processes can unfold fully. Stars live out their long lives, planets cool and stabilize. Chemistry has time to explore complexity. Life has time to adapt. None of this would be possible in a constantly noisy environment. The universe at large is often described as violent, but this description comes from focusing on rare, extreme events. The dominant state of the cosmos is quiet continuity. Most of space is calm. Most of time passes without incident. The Milky Way embodies this truth more than any dramatic image ever could. As you sit with this idea, you may notice your own internal volume lowering slightly, not because thoughts disappear, but because they no longer need to compete for attention. In a quiet environment, even movement feels soft. The galaxy does not demand constant awareness. It does not interrupt. It does not intrude. It allows existence to unfold without commentary. This permission can be extended inward. Thoughts do not need to justify themselves. They can arise and fade without consequence. There is a particular kind of safety in environments that are predictably quiet. Not silent in a tense way, but silent in a stable way. The Milky Way has been quiet like this for most of its existence. Long stretches of time pass without disruption. Patterns repeat. Motion remains consistent. This consistency is what allows trust to form. Not conscious trust, but physical trust. Systems relax when they are not constantly threatened by change. The galaxy offers this relaxation by default. When we imagine ourselves moving through the Milky Way, we are not rushing through a crowded space. We are drifting through immense calm, even as Earth moves rapidly around the Sun, and the Sun moves around the galactic center. The sensation is one of stillness. Speed at this scale does not feel like motion. It feels like rest. The silence of the galaxy is also emotional in its effect. It does not validate urgency. It does not mirror panic. It does not escalate. It remains unchanged regardless of human states. This neutrality can be stabilizing for those who feel overwhelmed by intensity. In the Milky Way, nothing reacts to your thoughts. Nothing amplifies them. Nothing reflects them back louder. This absence of feedback can be deeply calming. It creates a space where the mind can slow without resistance. The universe is not watching. It is not responding. It is not participating in inner narratives. It simply exists, vast and quiet, and within that quiet, there is room for rest. As the night continues, it may help to imagine the galaxy not as a dramatic spiral, but as a long, sustained pause. A pause that has lasted billions of years. A pause that holds motion without agitation. You might notice that your awareness begins to drift, not toward new ideas, but toward fewer ones. This is not loss, it is simplification. The galaxy does not complicate itself, it settles. Nothing in the Milky Way is in a hurry to arrive. Orbits do not rush. Stars do not strain toward outcomes. Everything unfolds at a pace that feels almost timeless. In this environment, even the concept of waiting changes. Waiting is not anticipation, it is simply duration. And duration, when it is stable, can feel like rest. The Milky Way does not interrupt the night. It does not compete with sleep. It supports it by offering a scale where nothing presses inward, where silence is wide enough to hold every thought until it fades. As you remain with this chapter, there is no need to visualize clearly. Silence does not require imagery. It only requires space. The galaxy provides that space in abundance. And so, within this vast, quiet structure, you are allowed to be still. Not because stillness is required, but because it is possible. The universe does not mind if you drift. It has always been drifting itself, slowly, steadily, without urgency. In the silence of the Milky Way, nothing is asking for your attention. And in that absence of demand, rest becomes natural. There is a particular kind of calm that emerges when we encounter something that does not ask anything of us. Not understanding, not interpretation, not action. The Milky Way exists in this way. It does not pose questions that need answers. It does not present challenges to be solved. Its scale is not a problem to overcome, but a condition to remain within. And when the mind begins to sense this, something loosens. Much of human thought is shaped by the expectation of response. We are trained, almost from the beginning, to react, to reply, to resolve. Every signal seems to demand an answer. Every silence feels unfinished. But the galaxy does not operate on this logic. It offers scale without expectation. It presents immensity without requiring comprehension. It remains vast regardless of our engagement with it. The Milky Way does not wait for us to understand its structure before continuing. It does not pause its rotation until our models are complete. It does not require agreement or belief. It simply exists, carrying on with a patience so deep that even the concept of patience begins to lose meaning. This kind of existence is unfamiliar to us, and yet deeply comforting once recognized. When we encounter something that does not require a response, the nervous system begins to rest. There is no need to prepare, no need to anticipate, no need to evaluate whether we are doing enough. The galaxy does not judge our attention. It does not reward curiosity or punish distraction. It does not care whether we look up or turn away. This absence of demand can feel unsettling at first. We are accustomed to environments that require constant participation, but gradually the lack of expectation becomes soothing. It creates space where the mind can exist without. The scale of the Milky Way contributes to this feeling. It is too large to be engaged with fully, and because of that, it releases us from the obligation to try. A light year is not meant to be mastered. A spiral arm is not meant to be held in the mind all at once. The galaxy exceeds us gently without confrontation. There is a subtle emotional shift that happens when we stop trying to turn cosmic scale into something useful. When we allow it to remain what it is, not a lesson, not a metaphor, just scale, just size, just. In everyday life, size is often associated with threat or responsibility. Large problems demand solutions. Large tasks demand effort. But the size of the galaxy is different. It does not increase pressure. It diffuses it. The larger the scale becomes, the less personal urgency can survive within it. The Milky Way has existed for billions of years without needing to justify itself. It does not progress toward a goal. It does not improve. It does not optimize. It simply continues. This kind of continuation is rare in human systems, and perhaps that is why it feels so restful to contemplate. Nothing in the galaxy is waiting for completion. There is no final state it must reach. Even its future collision with Andromeda is not an endpoint, but a transition. One structure slowly becoming another, without climax, without urgency. When the mind recognizes this, it may begin to release the idea that everything must lead somewhere, that every moment must justify the next. The universe does not function this way. It allows moments to exist without assigning them outcomes. This can be deeply comforting for those who feel pressure to make sense of their lives quickly. The galaxy does not rush toward meaning. It allows meaning, if it exists at all, to emerge slowly, unevenly, without instruction. Presence, in this context, is not effortful. It is simply the absence of resistance. To be present with the Milky Way is not to focus intensely on it, but to allow its scale to exist without interference, to let it be large without trying to shrink it into something manageable. You might notice that when you stop trying to understand the galaxy, your thoughts become less rigid. They no longer need to align or resolve. They can drift, overlap, and fade without consequence. The universe does not mind unfinished thoughts. The Milky Way does not offer answers because it does not pose questions. It does not ask why it exists. It does not ask where it is going. It does not wonder about its place in the universe. It simply occupies space and time, fully and quietly. This can feel like permission. Permission to exist without explanation. Permission to let go of the need to define everything. Permission to be uncertain without anxiety. In the presence of such scale, even the idea of presence changes. presence no longer means alertness or focus. It means allowance, allowing the galaxy to be vast, allowing thoughts to be small, allowing the night to unfold without direction. The Milky Way does not require mindfulness. It does not require awareness practices. It does not benefit from our attention. And because of this, attention becomes optional. We can give it or withdraw it without consequence. There is something deeply kind about this, to be part of something that does not depend on you, to belong to a structure that does not collapse without your participation. The galaxy will continue whether or not you are thinking about it. This realization can soften the edges of self-importance without diminishing self-worth. You do not need to matter to the universe to matter to yourself. Existence does not require cosmic validation. As the mind rests in this idea, it may begin to slow naturally, not because it is being guided to slow, but because there is nothing pushing it forward. Without demand, motion becomes optional. The scale of the Milky Way does not compress time, it stretches it. Minutes feel wider, moments feel less urgent. The night opens rather than closing in. There is no need to visualize spiral arms or star counts now. Those images can dissolve. The galaxy does not disappear when imagery fades. It remains whether imagined or not. This is one of its quiet gifts. It does not rely on representation. It does not need to be pictured to exist. And you do not need to picture it to be part of it. In this way, the Milky Way becomes less of a subject and more of a background, a stable backdrop against which everything else unfolds, a context rather than a focus. When something becomes background, it stops demanding attention. It supports without interruption. This is how the galaxy functions in our lives every moment, whether we notice it or not. Gravity holds, orbits persist, time moves forward. All of this happens without awareness, without effort, without commentary. The universe is not asking you to think about it correctly. It is not asking you to feel a certain way. It is not asking you to stay awake. It is simply there, and in being there, it allows you to rest. As this chapter settles, there is no conclusion to draw, no lesson to extract, no insight to carry forward. The Milky Way does not package itself as wisdom. It offers only scale, and scale, when allowed to exist without interpretation, can be one of the most calming experiences available to a restless mind. Perhaps this is because scale reminds us that not everything is personal, that not everything requires response, that not everything depends on us. In a universe this vast, there is room for silence, room for pause, room for not knowing, and in that room, you are free to remain exactly as you are, without explanation, without effort, without expectation. The galaxy continues. You may rest.